This is London.
Hello and welcome back to Retrovision. This is part 4 of 7 in Vulcans, Victors and Cuba. And this episode deals with the development of Skybolt, the US missile system, and the British system, Blue Steel. Hope you find it interesting.
Avro and Handley Page always thought there'd be a fly-off between the Vulcan and the Victor. This led to intense competition between the two companies. Both aeronautical firms could ill afford to lose the production contract. Although the Vulcan and Victor were totally different aircraft, the RAF was never able to choose between them, and both aircraft went on to have long and distinguished careers in the service. For Bomber Command, the mid to late 50s was a period of rapid change. The advent of nuclear weapons made greater demands on crews and aircraft, and accordingly, a new set of operational procedures needed to be devised. Rigorous training in all aspects of V-Force operations was practiced constantly.
A lot of planning went into our routes and our targets. We spent many hours. Every week we had to do a certain amount of target study. And we planned our routes, and they then were sent up to command for coordination with everybody else's routes. And then they came back, perhaps with changes, perhaps not. And very often we would be given a new target, and you'd have to plan all over again, of course, as things changed.
A typical training sortie during this period would begin with aircrew being summoned to the operations wing with sufficient kit for an indefinite stay away from base. While the aircrew were given a comprehensive pre-flight briefing, the aircraft were made combat ready by the ground crew. Back at the ops room, each crew member would receive an additional briefing from a specialist, expert in one specific aspect of the mission. When this was completed, crews would go out to their aircraft and carry out pre-flight checks. The cockpit door would then be locked, and no one allowed inside except crew members. They would then wait for the alert call. The initial signal would bring them to readiness 15, or 15 minutes. Remaining sealed in and with the ground crew standing by, the crew would have been connected to the operations controller in the Bomber Command HQ, deep below RAF High Wycombe. Over this system, the crew could hear dispersal instructions being issued to other units. These usually followed a set pattern, with units being brought to 5 minutes readiness, followed by 2 minutes readiness, then scramble. After this order was given, aircraft would carry out their meticulously planned radar bombing practice missions, or be dispersed to predetermined airfields in clutches of 4 aircraft. Throughout its career, the V-Force relied on dispersal as security against surprise missile attack. Unlike the Americans, the RAF never maintained a nuclear-armed airborne alert force. Instead, dispersed crews would be stationed at up to 36 designated airfields around the UK. In the case of a prolonged exercise, crews could be stationed in caravans next to their aircraft for as long as 2 weeks, continually practicing alert readiness checks.
There was one instance where I was at home in bed with my wife, and you never went to bed without having your car pointing in the right direction, with all your kit laid out on a chair by the bed. And there were tannoys around every house. And I woke up, I leapt into my kit, downstairs into my car, drove at high speed to the ops center, ran through the door, and there were two or three other people with me. And the staff looked totally puzzled because they hadn't called anybody. And we found out all that had happened was somebody in the guard room had switched on the tannoy system and then switched it off. And it was just the click on the tannoy which made us leap. So I think that does show that we were living with a certain amount of tension, yeah.
As the V-Force expertise grew, overseas exercises became more frequent. Squadrons would send detachments for up to a month. Valiants and Vulcans represented the RAF in SAC bombing competitions and training missions in far-flung locations, from the USA to Australia and Libya to Norway. All these exercises provided V-Force crews with invaluable operational training under widely differing conditions. It also had the secondary effect of showing the flag for the RAF and reminding the world that Great Britain had the bomb and an effective system to deliver it.
There was rivalry between the V-Force and SAC, Strategic Air Command, the Americans, but it was a friendly rivalry, and we used to participate in each other's bombing competitions, which we won a couple of times. So yeah, there was rivalry, but it was a good rivalry.
With V-bombers coming on stream in significant numbers, Harold Macmillan became the first fully thermonuclear-armed Prime Minister. The RAF was rapidly approaching the peak in its potency. Each bomber carried a single H-bomb with the yield of 1 megaton. The equivalent amount of TNT loaded on a goods train, traveling at 50 miles per hour, would take 6 hours to pass by. Bomber Command, with its force of 140 aircraft, now had the potential striking power of millions of World War II Lancasters. What wasn't fully appreciated by the British defense planners, though, was the pace of technological advance that the Soviets would achieve in their missile design and construction. Unexpectedly rapid breakthroughs in solid rocket motors and the development of miniaturized components for guidance systems and warheads were beginning to make the V-Force's free-fall bomb system look increasingly out of date. And most worryingly of all, the numbers of surface-to-air missiles that could reach high-altitude bombers were rising all the time.